right. Well, thank each of you for joining us here today. Time is of the essence, so we're going to get started. I am Laura Bethay with Career and Employment Resources, and I am thrilled that you have joined us for today's session. So, the why. What is our purpose in really being here today? Did you know it was National Career Development Month? Career Development Month. The month of November is a special time of the year for so many different reasons. But for Career and Employment Resources, we host tons of activities and events like the one we have here today. From mindful to mindfulness and career development. How cool is that, right? So, mindfulness is at the core of ultimate career success. Through simple yet very effective techniques, we can gain insight on how to control our thoughts and our behaviors and redirect them in productive ways to enhance our career journeys. We have a dynamic lineup in store. So let's get ready. I don't want to delay any further. So, first, let me introduce
Raising
you to
hand.
today's
Oh,
session facilitator, Gillian Norton. Hi, Gillian.
hi.
Gillian is a social psychologist trained at NC State University. Go Wolfpack.
Yes.
She has had the privilege of teaching psychology with the best students in the universe.
Whole
Guess
universe.
where? Right here at Wake Tech for the past 10 years. How awesome is that? Social psychology focuses on how our situations and relationships influence us and how we influence others. Her areas of expertise includes creating situations that promote fairness, equity, and respect for all. She's also on our equity team here at Wake Tech. Have to give you kudos on that. She began exploring and practicing mindfulness-based stress reduction about 15 years ago. Along this journey, she has discovered personal and professional benefits of practicing mindfulness, which is purposeful awareness with non judgment. So, Gillian, I am now tossing the mic your way. Please take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Laura. It's really fun to have the opportunity to work with you within Career and Employment Resources and to facilitate today's session. So I was looking at some of the questions in the chat box, and I'm not sure that we're going to answer some of them. So I'm sorry, Will, we're probably not going to have a chance to talk about some of the questions you brought up, but we are going to focus on how to deal with uncertainty or anxiety or worry and how to figure out how to live maybe even more purposefully, and maybe how we can manage um, some of the challenges that we face every day. And so some of you might be saying, oh, well, what is mindfulness? And we're going to start to talk about that. Um, I want to first say that we have a few students who have some challenges that they're facing right now, and they're going to help us this afternoon with just framing some of those questions and figuring out what are some ways that mindfulness might be able to help with figuring out what we want to do with our life, with figuring out what we need to do in college. And so the first person who's going to present some of those challenges is an amazing person named Christy Sanner, who's been at Wake Tech several years. And Christy had a particular question about uncertainty. And so, Christy, I encourage you to um, turn on your mic and share with us.
Okay. Thank you. I'm deciding upon my major, and I'm at a total loss of what to do.
Oh,
How
wow.
do I
That's
deal with this uncertainty?
exactly. That's really, really hard, isn't it? There's so many times in life where everything feels so uncertain. What do I want to do with my life? I don't know where to go. And before I answer this question, one of my regular mindfulness group members, if you wouldn't mind jumping into our regular mindfulness meeting, there's a couple of folks who need the link to this meeting that we're in today. And so I'm going to put that. Um, if you could just hop back into our mindfulness group to share that link, that would be so amazing. Maybe Paula, if you could do that, that would be so appreciative. Um, so this, for instance, is an uncertain situation. We usually meet every Thursday and talk about mindfulness. And so we're doing that with Career and Employment Resources today. So some folks are uncertain about where our meeting is. So how do we manage that? And one of them is just finding really practical steps. But another really great tool is mindfulness. And so you've probably heard this word mindfulness. What is mindfulness? If you Google it, you're going to find a lot of different kinds of things. And so I just encourage you, if you decide to Google it, look up specifically mindfulness-based stress reduction. A man named Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, long time ago, working with patients who had really chronic illnesses, people even who were dying, and living with a lot of that type of uncertainty in their life. And so he's trying to find ways to help people learn how to live with whatever their current experience was in the moment. And so he did a lot of different kinds of research and developed what's known as mindfulness-based stress reduction. So mindfulness, all it is, it's nothing magical, it's nothing special. It's really just learning how to pay attention on purpose to whatever we're experiencing, with some attitudes, right? Some positive attitudes that go along with that. You see, in uncertainty, you might have noticed in your life that you try to avoid uncertainty. And so mindfulness helps us learn how to face uncertainty in our lives so that we can better know what we can do. So we're just learning how to pay attention to whatever we're experiencing, whether it's positive or negative or uncomfortable or amazing, with non-judgment. You might have noticed that you have a tendency to label everything as good or bad in your life. This is great. This is horrible. I want this to end. This is amazing. It could last forever, ever. The more you pay attention to the way your mind works, you'll notice how you label judgment to absolutely anything and everything. And one of the things that mindfulness practices help us do is learn how to suspend that judgment and approach life with what's known as a beginner's mind, really being curious about it. And if we can find ways to approach those things that are uncertain or scary with this curiosity, this kind of beginner's mind, but also not labeling it as good or bad, we'll find that we're able to make better decisions in life, like figuring out what we want to do with our life. And so what mindfulness really is, what mindfulness practices are just different ways of learning how to pay attention to whatever you're experiencing. And throughout our time today, we're going to try some different techniques on being mindful in the moment. And so before we continue our conversation, we're going to do that now. We're going to do what's known as a breath awareness meditation. And you might think, well, is there something special about the breath? And there really isn't. It's just that we breathe a lot. I'm not sure if you noticed that, but we breathe a lot throughout the day. And so it becomes a very easy object for us just to practice this idea of paying attention to whatever we're experiencing very purposefully without labeling. Okay. And so if you've never meditated before, don't worry, you don't need anything special. If you have meditated before, I encourage you to use this idea of a beginner's mind, because sometimes we think we know what to expect. And instead, just be curious about what you're about to experience. And so I want you to find a really comfortable position for yourself. Okay. And, you just want your spine straight, but not rigid. Okay. And find a comfortable place for your hands. It's really comfortable to close your eyes. I see that I'm on the screen. A lot of people don't like to be on the screen when they meditate. So please know that you do not have to be on the screen at all. And so just kind of take a moment and just feel your body. Feel yourself sitting in your chair, on the floor, wherever you might be. And just remind yourself we're not trying to get anywhere. We're not really trying to do anything other than to pay attention. And so now I want you to take all of the attention that you have and put it onto the sensation of your breathing, wherever that is in your body. And so all we're doing is paying attention to how it feels to breathe. You might have noticed in your life you don't really pay attention to your breath unless maybe you're sick, and then that's all you can think about. But right now we're just going to pay attention to where we feel that breathing. You might notice your in-breath through your nostrils. You might notice how the breath feels in your throat. You might notice the rise and fall of your chest with each breath. Not trying to regulate your breathing or control your breathing. You're just noticing the breath. You might notice the breath in your belly or in other parts of your body. Just notice how that breath feels. You might think of it as riding the wave of your breath, in and out, just going back over and over again to wherever you feel your breath the strongest. You might notice that your mind is wandering. If you are feeling very uncertain, that can be a very strong emotion. Just notice that emotion, just notice it, and then bring your attention back to wherever you feel your breath, over and over and over again. If you notice you're holding your breath, just notice that. And just go back to breathing normally. We're not trying to get anywhere. We're not really trying to accomplish anything. We're just paying attention to how it feels to breathe with a little bit of curiosity. And if you start to feel overwhelmed, just notice it and bring your attention back to that feeling of breath. And throughout your day, anytime you start to feel a little overwhelmed, you can just take a moment and bring your attention back to how your breath feels. And just riding that wave of breath. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And so, Christy, I'm wondering how you feel now after we did a few minutes of breath awareness with uncertainty.
I feel much more relaxed and I feel calmer.
That's wonderful. Do you feel like you're in a better place to make a decision?
Yes, very much so.
Yes. Is this a good tool for you when you're feeling uncertain at other times in your life?
Very much so. I will definitely utilize it.
Absolutely. I know you've practiced mindfulness with me for a long time, so you've had a bit of practice with it. I'm also just curious because meditation, mindful meditation, is really helpful for a variety of reasons that we're going to talk about with our time together, but it's also important that we have practical steps in life. And so for you, Christy, or really anybody else who's in our group today, one of the great practical steps that you can do, not only practicing something like mindful breathing, is to start to take advantage of resources, right? And so I'm curious, and you can type this in the chat, anybody. How many of us have done a career assessment at Career and Employment Resources? Like I actually have. It was really fun. I taught ACA 1 year and I went with my class and did career assessments. And has anybody ever done that in your life?
Yes.
Yeah, you did. Anybody else? No. By the way, you can do this virtually now. In our pandemic world, you can do all these things. Um, I don't know, Laura, can like any of us do that? I did it because I was teaching ACA 122.
That's great. I'll provide some more information, but
Yeah.
all of the tools we have are open access. So anyone in our college community can take advantage of those.
And so the mindfulness helps us really kind of calm down our nervous system, calm down our mind, but we also want to have like a practical step we can take. And so if anybody is experiencing some uncertainty, what do I want to do with my life? I'm not sure. A really practical thing to do, and it's fun, is to do some career assessments. My memory is there was also like a values assessment. And so some of the tests showed where our values, our career interests, what our strengths are aligned. Ironically, it turned out that I was supposed to be a college professor, which I did not know when I went to college. And so it's also important to remember when you're feeling uncertain that it's okay to be uncertain. We don't have to know everything. Early on, especially in our education, I, in fact, didn't realize I was a teacher until I was about 35. Did not go to graduate school for education or to be a teacher. And so part of life is this uncertainty that we experience. And so reminding ourselves about that also can help us manage uncertainty. I really appreciate you asking that question today, Christy. We've got
Thank
some more
you.
questions. Yes. Daniela, did Daniela make it?
Yes.
I'm so glad.
I made
I'm so
it.
sorry. I bet that caused some anxiety, didn't it?
Oh, it did. I need some class on all this Zoom, Microsoft, Google meetings. It's too much.
I know. I know. It's been an awful lot. But I understand you're having some anxiety about how to move forward.
Yes, I finally decided my major, but
Yay.
I'm still feeling anxious about the next steps. So I don't know what I could do to reduce this anxiety.
That anxiety. Right. Well, wonderful that you figured out what you want to do for your major. But even when we make a decision, there still can be a lot of anxiety about having made that decision. There's this thing called cognitive dissonance that we psychologists talk about. It's really like psychological tension. And even after making a decision, we can experience this anxiety or cognitive dissonance. And so it's not really surprising that you're still feeling a little bit of anxiety, especially about what the next steps are. College can feel very overwhelming. And so what can we do? Well, I want to take a moment and actually talk about biology. You're like, why is she talking about biology? It actually really helps to understand a little bit about how our nervous system works. You might have heard of something called the fight or flight response. It's an amazing thing that our body does. If there's an emergency, if there's a threat in our life, part of our nervous system literally gets us ready to fight or run if we need to in that emergency. If, say, there's a bear chasing you, it's a fantastic part of our system. But that part of our system also can be activated when we're uncertain, when we're feeling anxious, right? And so everything can feel threatening, just like that bear, and our body will react in the same way. There's a wonderful part of our brain called the amygdala. The amygdala experiences really strong emotions. It's also really involved in that fight or flight response. And what happens is when we're feeling very uncertain, when we're feeling very anxious, that amygdala can be very active. And it makes the frontal part of our brain kind of quiet. The frontal part of our brain is the part that is logical and can make decisions. The amygdala is the part that reacts. And one of the cool benefits that research is really showing about mindfulness is that with regular practice, this idea of we pick an object and learn how to pay attention on purpose while suspending judgment, it actually calms the amygdala down. And over time, long-term meditators, like folks that meditate every day, still haven't gotten there, but it's one of my goals. What they've found is the amygdala actually becomes less active and people develop more gray matter in their frontal lobe. What does that mean? That means that people are better at things like emotion regulation. That means that people are better at decision making. It means that we're better at responding to the threats in our life versus just reacting in the moment. And so when we're feeling anxious, that's what's part of what's happening biologically. And then our mind can race and we're not sure what to do. So regular practice of mindfulness, it might not solve all the problems in the world, but what it can do is slow the amygdala down so that you're in a better position to really think through what you want to do. And so not sure if Laura has posted it yet, but I know that Eleanor also posted some resources. We have a couple of different resource handouts. And so one of them has books and podcasts and links to different meditations. And I'm going to refer you that there's an article on there that has about 5 different meditations specifically on dealing with anxiety. And we're going to do a really quick meditation about learning how to do something that we call face, right? If you think about yourself when you're feeling anxious, you might avoid, you might try to distract, you might try to turn away from it. And instead, what mindfulness helps us do is learn how to face those challenges. And so again, I want you to be really comfortable, whatever your comfortable position is. Maybe put your feet flat on the ground if you can. And find a comfortable spot to rest your hands. Right? And close your eyes. It does help to be able to pay attention to one thing if you close your eyes. And this time, we're not really paying attention to our breathing. We're going to pay attention to some other experiences. And so, in that very comfortable position you're in, just imagine this difficult experience, this anxiety-provoking experience that you're going through right now. And if you don't want to think about the most difficult thing in your life, just think about something that's moderately difficult. Sometimes it's easier to practice moderation before we move to difficult. And I just want you to notice that as soon as you start to pay attention to what's most difficult or even a little bit difficult, just notice and recognize that you have a desire to push away from that. You want to push away from the difficulty, to reach towards something else that's soothing, like chocolate, or to distract yourself with your cell phone. Trying to find some way to deny the difficulty. And instead, I want you to turn towards that difficulty. Put all of your awareness towards this part of your life, deciding on a major or whatever it might be that's the most difficult. And breathe deeply through your nose and out through your mouth. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And I want you to invite, as you're breathing, into your awareness a large figure of compassion, a figure of strength to you who can just surround you with love. So while you're facing this difficulty, there's a presence with you that's surrounding you with compassion and strength, that's just giving you a blanket of love and strength and security. Might just be a big cloud of compassion surrounding you. It could be an important person in your life who's just blanketing you with love. It could be a pet. Anything or anyone that feels loving and kind, just imagine them with you. And imagine that that figure is holding you. And with that figure in your life holding you, turn completely towards the difficulty. Face it head on. There's absolutely nothing to be scared or anxious about. Just feel this wise person or pet or cloud of compassion just surrounding you and speaking kindly to you. It will be okay. You are okay. You are loved. You are enough. You are not alone. And we will get through this together. Surrounded with love and kindness and compassion. It will be okay. You are okay. You are lovable. You are enough. You are not alone. And we will get through this together. Throughout your day, every time you notice yourself reaching for really familiar and comfortable ways of distracting yourself or turning away from this anxiety, just gently try to turn towards it. And if you practice this over and over, it won't feel so challenging. It won't feel so overwhelming. And you'll find that if you continue to practice this, that amygdala will calm down. And you'll find that you're more able to physically relax. And so now I invite you to open your eyes. And Daniela, I'm curious if that helped reduce some of your anxiety about this big decision in your life.
It did. I feel way more relaxed, and it's not easy to face our difficulties, but I think imagining all the compassion really helped.
It does, doesn't it?
It does.
And it doesn't matter who the compassionate figure is, right? It could be that dog you've got there.
Oh yeah, he's big on compassion.
Full of compassion, right? And so just like with Christy, though, I have to ask that practical question, because one of the other things that can really help with that anxiety is it can feel really overwhelming, is making sure you do your academic course plan so that you have every semester planned out and that there aren't any surprises when it's time to graduate. And so if you haven't done that, I'm going to encourage you to do that now.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you feel a little better.
I do. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you for being willing to ask that. So we actually have a couple more questions. Time management is not my strength in life, so I'm trying to be very mindful of time. So just be aware, might need some help with time management. But Ruben has a lot going on because Ruben is also our SGA president now. But he's got some exciting stuff going on. And so, Ruben, I was wondering if you wanted to share like what's going on with you and kind of feeling overwhelmed.
Yes, absolutely. So, in my case, I have a college decision to make when I'm planning on transferring at the end of this year, and lots of choices and lots of applications to fill out. So it's both exciting and a little bit overwhelming at the same time with all the being a full-time student with school and also balancing life with COVID. So my question was, what can I do to gain some relief over this overwhelming feeling?
Absolutely. Yes, just COVID is overwhelming. I'm sure everybody here today is overwhelmed in different ways with COVID. I will mention I just actually read an article this morning that doctors are seeing more people with weird health problems that they can't figure out because of this long-term stress that we're over or have been under for several months. But that's a lot to have to manage in your life, right? Planning to transfer, taking care of your classes now, being SGA president can be very, very, very overwhelming. And what's really interesting about our body is we can respond in the same way to good stress that we do to bad stress. And so even when there are lots of good things happening in our life, we can still have like a lot of cortisol and other kind of stress hormones pumping through our body. When we have these big long-term stressors like COVID, that's just adding to it. And what can happen is that we can use up all of those resources. And so one of the great things that we now know about mindfulness is it helps us build resilience. And so with regular practice, just learning how to pay attention to what we're experiencing on purpose with this regular practice calms some of those stress hormones down, calms that amygdala down. And then we can kind of build a reservoir of resilience. And so I actually am curious about what your current system is to balance everything. Do you have a calendar and a to-do list? Is that how you work it?
Oh, I have everything. I have a planner, I have a calendar, I have a digital calendar, I have a bunch of reminders. So,
Oh, wow.
lots of different ways to keep me updated.
Yes. So you've got a system, which is great. And one of the things that is really important when we're feeling overwhelmed is to like have that kind of system, to be able to prioritize what we need to do in life, right? But also to have some spontaneity in there, right? Some of you have probably found this in your life where you scheduled yourself out, but then that day you just weren't feeling it. And so as long as you've got some flexibility, then you can maybe work on something else. But sometimes in life, we don't have that kind of flexibility. We're just really overwhelmed. And so one thing that I think is very helpful to keep in mind in life is that we have like this really small circle of control. This is what I can manage in this moment, right? This is what I can deal with right now. Then we have a little bit of a bigger circle of influence, right? Well, I can do this now and I can do that later, right? So we can have some influence. And then there's everything else. There's stuff we can't do anything about, like COVID. And so what do we do with that? Because even the stuff that we can't do anything about in the moment can still create this sense of overwhelmness, this uncertainty, anxiety. They all work together, y'all. And so it does sometimes just help us to remember, this is what I can control right now in this moment. This is what I can influence, and everything else, I have to let it go. And so we're actually going to do a slightly different kind of meditation. Is one of the principles of mindfulness is this idea of letting go. It's not throwing stuff out the window. It's just not holding on to it. So when we're feeling overwhelmed, what you might notice is that your mind is racing and racing and racing, and you can't get anything done. Sometimes we just need to let some of that go. And so I'm going to share my screen. And so hopefully this will work. And this, by the way, is on the list of resources that I shared with Laura, and she shared with the chat. This is a really fun website. It's called mindful.org. They will try to get you to subscribe a lot, so you can just let that go. But this is a wonderful, just a minute meditation. So even if you only have a moment in your life, we can do this. And so when you open it up, I'm going to let it load for just a second. And it's showing me that you can see my screen. So hopefully you can see my screen, right, Ruben?
Yes.
Okay, great. So there's so much going on that I think it's just easiest. So we can just type in here in all caps, except I can't spell, just feeling overwhelmed, right? Maybe even put out some exclamation points on that. Okay. And so now I just ask everyone just to focus on the screen. I'm going to be silent during this meditation. Okay. So just focus on your screen. And then we just click there. So that's a meditation on letting go. There are a lot of different versions of letting go meditations, but what did you think about that one, Ruben?
I thought it was pretty good how the sort of the star, I think it was sort of shrinking away. It's just let my mind wander for a bit.
Yeah. You just like visually, you could see that thought just floats away, right? There was a study at Harvard that showed that our minds wander 47% of the time. I almost wonder if they underestimated that, right? That we like the more you pay attention to your mind, like our minds go all over the place. And if you're feeling overwhelmed by everything you have to do, it's like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, and I can't focus on anything. And what we can learn by mindfulness is that they're just thoughts, and we can just kind of let them float away. And so while you might not be at a computer, you can always imagine that feeling or all those things on your to-do list, they just are in a bubble, and you can just let it float away, right? mindfulness isn't about control. It's really just about learning how to be present with whatever it is we're experiencing. And some of the techniques, like we've seen now 3 different techniques about how to practice this idea of mindfulness. Right. And so I hope that gives you a little bit of help. Eleanor Miles is here from the ILC today. And so I do always have to give a shout out for the ILC, because in case you didn't know this, Ruben, or everybody else, they actually have workshops on things like time management and stress management. And I've had students who've done those workshops and have said that really helped me figure out how to get a grasp on balancing my time in an effective way. And so if you've never seen them, you should go visit them too. Do the learning styles too, but that's a whole other workshop. We have one more student who,
Can you hear
yeah,
me?
yeah,
Before we move forward with our last student, could we just pause for a moment for
absolutely,
Dr. Newsill to jump in before he has to head off to his next?
absolutely.
All right.
Hi,
Thank you.
Jerry.
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for welcoming me into the space.
Oh, yes. Welcome, welcome. And we have here, and we're going to transcend very briefly here because we know duty calls otherwise. But thank you for being on board to talk with us just a couple of minutes about long-term benefits of mindfulness in the workplace.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation, Laura. And Gillian, thank you so much for sharing 3 really wonderful practices. I feel so refreshed.
Yay.
It's often the case where we look at mindfulness as being something that can support us for stress reduction, anxiety, uncertainty, a lot of the things that folks are touching on already in just this brief amount of time together. I guess I'm here to share with you that beyond dealing with those things, beyond kind of helping address some of the more troubling aspects of life, the benefits of mindfulness are just so far-reaching. There are just so many different ways that we can apply mindfulness, and so many different ways that it could support us. And when I first began my mindfulness practice some decade or so ago, I guess I wasn't sure kind of what to expect with mindfulness. I had these thoughts of needing to sit kind of cross-legged in a dimly lit room for like an hour or so at a time to reap any benefits. And it felt kind of a little bit soft and squishy to me. And I thought, I'm just not sure if this is something that would work for me. And as I kind of explored that space and became a little bit more familiar with it, I was delighted to find that there are certainly different types of meditation where you could approach it in different ways. But mindfulness, as Gillian mentioned, is really this simple but not easy process of following the breath, of using the breath as a tool to gather our attention, and also to be able to cultivate this ability to step back and to observe our thoughts and feelings as this kind of detached observer. So again, I really appreciate the practice that Gillian shared with us. One of the things that is really appealing about mindfulness to me is that it is backed by research. So, I mentioned it felt a little kind of soft and squishy to me at first. About 20 years ago, if you were to look for research on mindfulness, you probably would have only found about 100 research articles, literally. And if you like, you can try this for yourself. You can go to any search engine. You might want to use something like PubMed, which is a database that's maintained by the National Institute of Health. But do some searches. About 20 years ago, you'd probably find only about 100 scholarly articles. About 15 years ago, you might have found about 200 articles. And if you were to do a search today, just in 2020 alone, you'd find upwards of 2,000 articles that were published just in this year alone. So there's an explosion of research that takes mindfulness away from just being this really lovely idea that feels kind of warm and soft and fuzzy to something that science supports. It's research-based. And for the purposes of this presentation, we're really exploring the use of mindfulness for things like anxiety and stress reduction in dealing with uncertainty, particularly in regard to career development and career decision making. So it's a wonderful application for it. But as you get out into the work world, as you get into your career of choice, please know that mindfulness can support you in so many additional ways. It can support you with focus and productivity, with innovation and finding balance in life. So this includes things like just having better concentration and greater stability of mind in the workplace. It accounts for deeper engagement with others and stronger collaboration, with clearer thinking, with increased creativity. There are plenty of studies that demonstrate that mindfulness frees up that kind of mental space for us to get more creative. And as Gillian mentioned before, it can support us with resilience and reducing burnout. Clearly, those things are extremely important, especially today. So many different ways that you can apply mindfulness, so many different ways that it can support you. And just know that a lot of really successful individuals in the world of business and in so many different fields are utilizing this skill that sounds almost too good to be true. So folks ranging from the CEO of LinkedIn, the CEO of Ford Motor Company and Salesforce, to LeBron James, to Oprah Winfrey, to Bill Gates, there are people who are really successful at what they do, who are utilizing the skill to cultivate all of these different things that support them in their professional and personal lives. So I appreciate just a couple of minutes to give you that endorsement of mindfulness and talk about how it could support you in these additional ways. And now we turn it back over to Gillian and to you, Laura, to continue this wonderful conversation on utilizing mindfulness. So thank you so much for having me here.
And thank you for your time and insight. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Jerry. And in case you don't know Jerry, he's Dom Buds, but he also facilitates Mindful Mondays. And so on the resource handout that Laura shared, there's a link to the Microsoft team for Mindful Mondays. It's Mondays at 9 o'clock. It's a great way to start your week. So I just had to get, yeah.
I appreciate the plug. Yeah.
Absolutely. And several of us who are here today have been going to Mindful Mondays.
And to Mindfulness and Education, awesome resources,
Absolutely.
along with so many others. So again, thank you all so much for letting me join you.
It's good to see you, Jerry.
Be well.
So we have one other student to talk to, and then we still have a couple people that we want to talk to. So I was hoping that Anjali would like to share some really exciting news, but also can be a little bit overwhelming. Anjali.
Hi, Professor Norton. So
Yeah,
my question is about, so basically I landed an interview for my dream job, which is awesome. And I'm pretty confident in that I have practiced enough and I have enough knowledge and experience. And I think I'm ready, but I'm not really assured that that's the case. So how do I assure myself?
Interviews are so scary and stressful. Even when you feel very prepared, it can be very overwhelming. And so it makes sense that you still need some assurance. So have you done a mock interview with Career and Employment Resources? Did you know that they'll do that with you?
No, I did not.
Yes, you can absolutely do that. It's an amazing resource because what I found in my life is sometimes if I do it by myself, it's great, but it's always helpful to like practice with somebody else. And so they just have so many great resources there. But I actually have two suggestions for you. One, on your own, on the resource sheet, you'll see that there's a video. It's actually called How to Clear Your Head, and it's about mindful walking. And so I want you to practice it before the day of your interview, but certainly before your interview that day, I want you to go for what's known as a mindful walk. It's a little hard to do through Teams, so I shared that video with you. But the other thing I want you to do is what's known as a loving kindness meditation. And so we're going to do a really short loving kindness meditation as our last example of a meditation today. And so sometimes people actually find that putting their hands over their heart is really helpful during a loving kindness meditation. So you could try that. You don't have to though, right? And again, you might find closing your eyes is really helpful. And I want you to say to yourself the following words. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be peaceful. May I be at ease. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be peaceful. May I be at ease. And I want you to imagine all the people in your life that you love very much and the pets, and they're just all surrounding you. and they are all wishing you the same well wishes. All of the loved ones in your life are saying to you, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be peaceful, may you be at ease. And while you might not have met the person who's going to interview you yet, or the interviewers, because sometimes it will be a group, just in whatever way you want, just imagine the interviewers, whoever they might be. And I want you to say to them, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be peaceful, may you be at ease. I want you to do this now, but shortly before your interview, do the same thing. Imagine that you're saying to the interviewers, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be peaceful, may you be at ease. Imagine yourself at the interview, in the middle of the interviewer, and saying to yourself as you imagine yourself at this interview, I am calm, I am happy, I am peaceful, I am safe, I am at ease, and all is well. You can do these phrases as many times as you need, and you can do them on your mindful walk right before your interview. And you'll find that you'll be able to approach the interview from a sense of peace and calm and ease. We're doing that one pretty short because I want to make sure a couple other people have a chance to talk. But did you find that to be helpful, Anjali?
I think it's really cool that we were thinking about the interviewer as well in this practice. And so yeah, that was really awesome, and I want to try it out. So
You should totally try it. You can practice it on people in your life too. You'll find that it calms you doing this type of loving kindness meditation, and it affects the people and influences the people that are around us. And so you're going to be great.
Thank you.
Let me know how it goes. We have a few other people who want to share a little bit more about how mindfulness is helpful in personal life, but also in professional life. And one of the people that's also here today is Eleanor Miles from the ILC. And Eleanor and I, it turns out, took a mindfulness class at Duke at the same time. And it was pretty amazing. So Eleanor, I'm going to hand this over to you for a few minutes.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate your having me here. As Gillian said, we were in the same mindfulness-based stress reduction program, met each other during the day of mindfulness, unaware that we were each taking it at different times, and we were not supposed to speak. We were all contained, but somehow we managed to speak with our eyes, and just a little, so great. And we've talked about this often. So I do have resources in a Word document that I've posted in the chat, and some of them may be the very same ones that Gillian has put on her list as well, because a lot of them are the classics. John Kabat-Zinn's books, of course, would be a great place to begin if you wanted to begin. But if you're more of a podcast type of a person, I've actually recorded some podcasts, and they're on the Wake Tech ILC Tutoring YouTube channel. And so there's a link there to that. I explain the attitudes of mindfulness that Gillian was talking about today. I've got some meditation practices. One is particularly about test anxiety in particular. And those are there under mindfulness and podcasts, and there's a playlist there. I've also included some of my favorite books, and I thought about Kelly McGonigal's book, The Upside of Stress, when Gillian was talking about the positive stress that you can still experience in life. And she talks about stress being something that's, when you know something as important as at stake is when you're going to be feeling stress. And so if you stop a moment and think about it in terms of, well, if I didn't care about this at all, if this didn't matter to me at all, I wouldn't feel any stress about this. And then put the focus back on, why is this particular interview, this particular experience important to me? You can probably trace it back to your values. Emma Children is one more author that I would like to mention. She is a Buddhist nun, so she will be talking about some points of her religion, but still the same as with John Kabat-Zinn. You can practice from a secular point of view with the mindfulness and take her words of wisdom totally separate from a religious perspective. And her books are so applicable to today, even though she wrote them in the past. Some of them are titled When Things Fall Apart, Comfortable with Uncertainty, Welcoming the Unwelcome, Wholehearted Living in a Brokenhearted World. So this just shows you how timely these books actually are. And even one of the resources I've given you is a website. The University of Vanderbilt's website has a list about more books as ones that they recommended. So there's plenty out there, lots of podcasts, lots of videos. And yes, Kelly McGonigal has lots of TED Talks that would maybe lead you into her book, The Upside of Stress. And thank you for that. I hope you can explore some of these. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. Just like have so many amazing things going on at Wake Tech that a lot of people didn't know about. That we have Mindful Mondays, mindfulness with the ILC. We have another mindfulness group that I mentioned in the beginning that we meet every week. And so, as Jerry was saying, it's not just a buzzword. There's a lot of research that also backs all of this up. We only have about 5 minutes, so time goes by really, really fast. And so I wanted to just kind of throw it to Laura and ask, should we just go ahead and do questions and answers at this point?
I would love to hear just a couple minutes from our student and staff member on how they have incorporated.
Absolutely. It doesn't look like Lee's here today, but there are a couple of staff, faculty and staff who are here who have been practicing mindfulness. Christy's been practicing mindfulness with me for a while. So Christy, do you want to share just for a minute or so about some of your experiences since you've been practicing mindfulness with me?
Most definitely. I have found mindfulness to be extremely helpful as a student when I prepare for presentations in classes. And even in the workplace, I'll often have to present something. And so to take a few minutes to practice a mindfulness meditation practice will help me when I prepare and doing for presentations. Also, it's helped me in regard to my degree, which is mental health and gerontology. And because I've developed an interest because of Professor Gillian Norton and from Mr. Jerry Newsell, I'm very interested in being able to lead and facilitate mindfulness meditation practices when I work with older adults or when I work with those who may be experiencing anxiety. And then lastly, oftentimes in the workplace and in our personal lives, we're confronted with conflict. And so to prepare ahead of time by doing a mindfulness meditation can be quite helpful in having better focused in that regard.
Awesome, Christy. Thank you so much for sharing that. I guess I know that you've told me about how many different benefits you've had. We had a plan for Lee Corbett also participates, but I don't think he was able to be here today. I don't really want to put anybody on the spot, but I know Paula's been practicing for a while as a faculty. Paula, would you be open to sharing just for a minute about what mindfulness how it's been helpful for you? And if you don't want to be put on the spot, that's okay.
No, that's okay. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with this COVID and working remotely and the seemingly overabundance of work, I find it has been a lifesaver. And our last mindfulness practice was a lot of fun because we went outside and took a walk.
Yes.
So and yeah, there's a lot of stress on all of us, and just taking the time out and being kind to ourselves. For
Yes.
at least, I'm using mindfulness techniques that I'm learning every Thursday on other days, and it's been so helpful for reducing my stress.
I love that. It helps us manage stress. So with our time today, there's so many research benefits. I just thought I would just mention a couple other things we've talked about. So it helps with stress management, calms down some of the overactivity of that nervous system. But research has also found it not only helps increase attention, it reduces our kind of distractibility so that we can get into whatever it is that we're doing. Believe it or not, in schools, they're finding it reduces absenteeism. We're more willing to be in places maybe even if we didn't want to be there. It decreases things like blood pressure, but it also increases performance. This is true in both schools and the workplace. And they've even found that people are happier. So even though part of mindfulness is learning how to live with the unpleasant, we find that we're better able to manage that unpleasant. And so we end up being able to do a better job. Our well-being is increased. Our resilience is increased. We're also better able to like unwind. So when we're done with schoolwork, when we're done with whatever your job happens to be, it helps you be able to disconnect better. And so there's an awful lot of resources, and I encourage you all to continue to explore. And I really do appreciate having the opportunity to come and talk with you all today about mindfulness and how that might help in a lot of different situations. And so thank you very much.
And thank you for facilitating such a thorough session. We greatly appreciate you, Gillian. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Eleanor, for chiming in, and our dynamic students for also playing roles today. So we appreciate you, and know that November is that much better because of your insight today. National Career Development Month, and Lynn posted earlier that tomorrow is officially National Career Development Day. So we want you to stay tuned and connected with career and employment resources. I have posted here our social media. We can be reached on all levels there. You can connect with us with our webpage via email. And you can also book an appointment with us if you desire to move forward in this career journey. We love our alumni. We love our prospective students. We really love our enrolled students that were on the line with us today. So thank you all. I have placed in the chat a link to our survey. So please take a moment. It's very short. Take a moment to give us some feedback on today's session. I hope you are thoroughly pleased as I was. Many of you didn't know what to expect, but I know you're walking away with a whole host of resources. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And this recording will be posted, so you will be able to chime in and review it a little later as well. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful and safe evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
You too.
Thanks to everybody who helped support this today.
Exactly.